Eric, how are you? You were 2 weeks ago melting. Are you less melted?
Um, it goes back and forth. I feel like I had a bunch of really good sessions after we met two
Hmm.
weeks ago. But I also you know, at times am still kind of like I'm like, how do I fit in here? Like what do I do now? Just trying to, if I don't know, then just sit with it. It's very uncomfortable though, and it doesn't feel natural.
Hmm. So I was thinking about what we might talk about this morning to build off of what we did. Um, and I've been I don't know what I would call it. Really almost drowning in to what degree should I avoid um, things that cause somebody to break down like you? Um,
That's an amazing question.
Yeah. And so th this is something that I thought would be building off of what we did before and also the way that you were, Sam, on Saturday. Like to what degree is is learning and it's just in some sense an empty phrase right now, but to what degree is learning the a priori patterns and all of the things that we build off of, to what degree does that destroy? No, well, not destroy, but in some sense destroy a compensation that normal people have in the world about what you can and can't change. Like I think that that's what I have been thinking about. What you can actually change, what you can't change, what do we invest in? Because the biggest thing that I could say this morning about what makes emergence different is the idea that we can, in a limited way, but far more than anything else, provoke or evoke or encourage permanent changes in other people, many of which they never even recognize after they happen. So to what degree, okay, so let me start with this. Hannah and I had a terrible fight yesterday, which resolved in a much better way than any we've had. We both woke up today feeling much closer, and it isn't buried. But the fight essentially, this is my way of talking about it, was it involves the idea that I know how much suffering I came to have these realizations. I know that I spent 11 years feeling suicidal more days than not before I came out the other side of this. I talk about it, and I am even right now detached in some way from this. I have never really owned that that's what happened to me. I talk about it like a person still in shock all these years later. There's an emptiness to it. Um, but intellectually, when I watched you breaking down 2 weeks ago, Eric, I was reminded of the kind of breakdown that I lived in for those years. And the breakdown, the pattern of the breakdown that you were having, caught between two worlds. What is true? I don't, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth at all, but it was so painful to watch you hurting that bad. And in part, not about blaming myself, but in part, I'm responsible. In part. in part, I am responsible for introducing, like like in the Matrix, like introducing, getting you to take the pill that wakes you up.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean that you're not accepting it, either one of you. But the truth is, I think in the whole community, I'm the only person who could possibly know and inadequately express. If you take this on, you are going to suffer horribly in a way that the world will not understand. And I have said that to each person who has wanted to come learn emergence. And I don't think not one single person, including you, Sam, or Maria, who the two of you you really know suffering, could possibly have anticipated how much suffering this causes because it's not a thing you learn and now you know it because the suffering is ongoing. Some of the suffering parallels the kind of suffering that you do when you work on yourself and all that other stuff. So, you know, in a 12-step program, things like that. So, and that's kind of built into our community for the most part. But some of the suffering is gut-wrenchingly terrible. And I figured that I wanted to raise this because I thought, well, this would be a hell of a topic, a good topic to raise in a basics thing, because this is not me saying, okay, what's a wound or, some pragmatic stuff. This is the more personal, what does it mean to be in this community? What are we actually doing?
Hmm.
Not what's the purpose, but what's the price that we're paying for doing this? So I wanted both of your thoughts about this because both of you are suffering badly, not ordinary, like decompensation, and not decompensation from a mental illness, decompensation from beliefs of the world. Like I think about what did I believe when I became a therapist? Well, I believed in healing where the thing is gone. I didn't have any idea that you could become more loving from it, from the process. That had nothing, had no idea. Okay.
Hmm.
The pain to reach that point, as opposed to reaching the point of, okay, I'm more civilized. I don't say as mean words in a fight, or um, I divert my suffering into a spiritual practice, and I just simply accept the world is a lot of suffering in it. Like those were things that I did before this thing happened to me. I'm sure both of you did them too.
It's
So
interesting though, with the more you talk about just in this moment, normally I would just go with you, but in this moment, I'm sort of my mind is naturally just offering up the counter to all of it, like all the
please,
positives.
please, Sam, please do that. I just welled up when you just said that. Please do it. I want this to be a real thing. I don't want you to be
Well, I
following.
mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just literally actually a scene, believe it or not, for me, which is I'm just with a woman last night at 7 o'clock and she gets on, she just had a nose surgery. So she can't really, she says in the beginning of the session, I can't really cry because it hurts my nose if I start crying. And then we start talking and the woman feels so safe that she just starts, I mean, she just kept on crying no matter what topic we picked. And that safety that's between us and the way that I just go with the pain towards layer seven, consciously choosing to go towards the suffering. I mean, there's so many subtleties, and that session, which for the I really could see how safe I was, and I'm not saying I was unsafe before emergence, but the safety is something more conscious, and it's a certain kind of safety. Not blaming as much is a certain kind of safety, Because
Mhm.
we're not going to get to the end of this woman's problems, and then I'm going to go, well, it's really your fault that because you did this, or you thought this thing, and if you hadn't have dated this what's like, we got to fix your picker because if you had, it's not really
Oh,
like that.
God.
There's a million set moments in a session where a therapy, even in a high level, not in an unkind way, would dish out some amount of blame, and it just doesn't happen. And the stuff with the inner and outer layers, they're not going to get hit with a thing of emptiness, suddenly at the end with me going, well, everything happens for, whatever it is. But there's just so many moments like that where it's so different than what a person would normally get in the world, you know? The a priori patterns, and even if I do give some answer or something, it's different. Like the woman was having some distortion about how bad she looked from the surgery. It was n not precise or whatever, but the boyfriend had annoyed her by going against the resistance, and I went with the resistance, and I told her about fragmentation and that, do you know that I can see your hair and your eyes and these a priori patterns that we know. And I mean, it was just a very, very sweet session, and 99% of it was influenced by the patterns in my mind that this woman doesn't know that I know. She doesn't know what's guiding it. For her, it's just a very loving, kind, funny conversation. But for me, it's like 10 years of patterns. It is literally like mathematics or, you know, it is so human, but it's also not. I mean, it's really not. It's so technical. It's
Yes.
so technical. Every moment I'm is so technical for the most part. Besides things like my tone of voice or how kind I am or
Yeah.
but how slow I go, how I tell her to slow down, everything is influenced by emergence. Everything. And I think that part is, but then yeah, then I can if I start thinking about that, I start tipping into that woman has no idea anything, you know, I'm just a nice person, a smart person, whatever.
Okay. So I'm torn between asking you, Eric, or asking you, Sam, the do you think about the price that you pay for sitting with a human being who will never know the suffering that you went through to become that man? Does it ever occur to you? Because see, I have took that away, Eric, from 2 weeks ago, and I am looking at the suffering that you are incurring in order to become a better person, in order to help other people. And in the conversation with Hannah, which was really painful for both of us, the idea that I was left with is, what right do I have to put somebody through that amount of pain? And here's the critical piece. When there is no way for the person to make a real decision about it, there is no way to know that you would suffer this much, either one of you. There's no way. I tell people, but it's empty. There's no way to know until you do it. And once you're on the path of emergence, when you're committed to it, you don't get off. In other words, even Hannah, who was, went through the 4 years in the emergency in the university and has stepped back, there's no way for her to get out of the suffering.
Steve, we're not recording, right?
We
Because we
are.
can't. We are? Oh, we are. Okay.
Yeah. No. And this will
All right.
be edited like
No, no,
whatever.
no. I'm not saying it because of that.
Well,
My
thank you.
screen wasn't showing the top, and so I was worried it wasn't recording.
Right. And I just checked.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sam.
Sorry.
The point of this is when I think about this being a basics thing, which is what do you say to a person who is considering or wanting to do this? And I am realizing that one of the most important basics is, okay, so the a priori patterns, a set of patterns that are not logical, they're natural, a set of patterns that Once they get in you, you can't unsee them. You know, it's a set of patterns like learning to ride a bicycle and you can't get it out, you don't forget it, you know? So that kind of a change in a human being's mind and body, that it's irreversible. It's not reversible. You know, and more than that, it's almost like one of those nuclear reaction things where once the thing starts, the the reaction continues till there's nothing left, you know, when we're gone. So I hear, and I'm glad, Sam, that you're saying the things you're saying because it's very accurate, you know. But I then think what price you've paid, including Sam, including on Saturday, including the suffering you did on Saturday, where you had to withdraw from the world. Now,
Mm.
I'm not saying anything is wrong. I'm saying I am having a crisis in some sense of conscience about to what degree would you have had a better life if you didn't know?
I don't know. I mean, I was having a pretty bad life when I came in, so it's hard to say. I was like having a decompensation that had no handrails. It wasn't the decompensation of a priori patterns, it was the decompensation of insanity. But
That's
also, I don't know, of course, is the answer, but you're talking about like Eric and me have had a priori patterns that are not emergence related. It's like a 12 step has a priori patterns that you learn.
yes.
Code Al-Anon does, shamanism, Buddhism, like it's not like my mind is filled with a priori patterns, some of which have nothing to do with emergence. I think I can see more of them, but they exist in every like
That,
whatever you resist persists is an a priori pattern that
yes,
is not from
I see
emergence.
that. Do you realize that for 2 weeks ago you learned the outside of this world existence of all of them, and now you have a thing, a meta pattern that organizes not only things in emergence, but everything that you just said? In other words, yes, you learned those things, both of you.
And
Yes,
they cause meltdowns. Yeah, they cause meltdowns.
yes, you are correct.
Yeah.
But Sam, now there's this, and you know, this is a good thing to look at. But now you have a thing where the real path of your life is discovering more of them,
Or
is
teaching the
noticing
ones that I
more of
know,
them
or
by
deepening
choice, by
the ones I
choice,
know.
not because you're exposed to AA or you're exposed to Buddhism or something. It's now you can see that what it is in some way done in my life is it is separated into like sides of a coin, urges from behavior. And the urges are largely a way to talk about the patterns. I have a pattern that's influencing me, an a priori pattern.
Mhm.
Over here, I have a response to that pattern. Most of my life was responses and trying to refine my responses.
Mhm.
And then asking myself questions about, well, what can I know about me as a person because of how I behave?
Mhm.
That's the standard in the world. That
Yeah.
is the most significant difference in the pragmatic side of emergence that we can see. That the entire world of therapy, personality, but just even regular, normal, everyday people who don't want to do that self-examination, it's still behavior and what ways can I improve that? And in what way does this mean I have a limitation in my ability to behave? Like, and my relationships, like all of it is on that side of the coin for most people. For us, what's happened is we have so much more of the other side of the coin, which is the one that happens before all behavior. We think, we ask questions, we try to see more of what happens before we ever behave.
Mhm.
The scene and story thing, like of now that's 5 months old, is an example. So suddenly we have all this entire new category of self-examination. Huge. So this is not me saying some black and white thing, is it good, is it bad? This
No.
is me trying to honestly, more honestly than ever, face what does it mean to take this on, to begin this path? What does it mean? How much suffering? Is there a better way for me to communicate it to a person new who's wanting to get the things that they see us be able to do? Because that is what attracts people to this, what we can do.
Sure.
Like to many people, we walk on water in some situations. Like we're just great therapists or we're just brilliant, whatever, right? Which to me, I understand that that's the only way they can explain it because they don't have much of the urge side separate. There's no, even though it's not separate, it is a sequence. Those urges precede behavior. And those urges are rooted in patterns that aren't even in this world. They existed before we even existed. And we carry them in. And then, things like an AA or Al-Anon or Buddhism, in my case, all those things. So, for you to shamanism, the patterns come to the surface more. They're always there, but they come to the surface in what way? In the way in which I now have choice. They make me a more conscious person, not because I am aware. They make me a more conscious person and responsible person because I now have choice. But with the choice comes that responsibility and the burden. And with it comes the idea that, well, who was I when I didn't see these things? What kind of a person was I before I saw scene and story? Well, I can say that almost all the fights Hannah and I had were complicated beyond belief because of scene and story. Okay, does that mean it's solved? No, but
No.
it means we fight differently. And in some way, the pain is so much worse because I know what's happening more.
Mm.
It gets solved more. There is a, I woke up this morning and Hannah and we spoke, talked about it, and we felt closer to each other. Not the fight is done and it's okay. I don't have too many experiences in my whole life of a fight, which was very painful, being resolved that way, that it resolved to more love.
Mm.
Okay. But then I say, like, is it worth, and I'm not making it a black and white, is it worth the amount of suffering? But I can't not do it. In other words, the choice is there in theory, but in practice, would I choose to go to sleep? Do I choose to like just avoid? It to some level, Sam, there's a healthy
I
avoidance.
mean, I'm not sure I chose to take it. I mean, like I teach, there's hundreds of examples where I taught someone an a priori pattern. They went, uh-huh, yep. And then they never thought about it again. They never mentioned it again. And so it didn't even, I tried to teach it to them and I couldn't get them to take it on. And I mean, I don't mean, and I don't blame myself like I taught it badly. Like I taught it in a way that was whatever. So I don't, there's also that piece, which is like, how many people have you tried to teach a pattern to and they were like, nothing happened. You didn't ruin their life. I mean, nothing happened.
Yes,
Weren't interested in it. There was nothing there.
I don't look at it as ruining. I look at it
Oh,
as
but I'm saying like, I'm just being like fuzzy. I don't actually mean that, but
so, Sam, how do you feel about you and I having contributed largely to Eric's suffering and melting down and breaking down and all that pain? How do you feel about that? Because we have, you and I. You and I are probably two of the major contributors. Now add in Maria in the last year, right?
I mean, I can't separate it from all the times Eric called me suffering unrelated to emergence, and I just connected with him, and it's like I can see both. Like I've been very helpful for Eric, and then I melted him. I mean, I don't know, but I would be curious what Eric thinks about it.
Yeah. So now, but I wanted to get there before I asked Eric,
Yeah,
about this because in this present time, say, whatever recent months, certainly in the thing from 2 weeks ago, the first of these basics, you were hurting for the entire thing. You were hurting,
yeah,
you know? And my question to myself is now, do I have a right to do that to a human being? This is not me apologizing. This is not me saying there's no benefit. This is not me saying it's a right and wrong situation. It's really a more awake sense of my effect on people. I have an effect on people in a positive way. They become more loving. But every time you become more loving, you become equally more hating toward yourself and others. I don't mean hate expressed behaviorally like, a psycho. I mean, okay, so I went to the supermarket maybe Thursday last week, and Anna's at work, and I go to the supermarket, and they have these bags of food for the people who can't get SNAP benefits. And they're $5 a bag, a meal for the family. And I didn't know what it was. And I see the guys at the register saying, "Would you like to donate?" And there's a piece of me that hates being forced by proximity to donate because I feel guilty, blah, blah, blah. But I get up to the thing and the guy tells me what it is. And I say, okay, take out X amount, add X amount to my thing. I can't tell you how pained I was about the thought of the
Just snap.
family starving.
Yeah.
The pain is terrible. 20 years ago, the pain would have been bad. I would have had empathy, but the pain is so much worse because of emergence. I'm not complaining. I'm just simply saying the more that becomes present in my mind about human beings and life and what's happening, in some way the pain increases. Now, is this more loving to care about people? Obviously, it is. And I'm not remarking about my behavior. I'm just simply remarking about my reaction to this thing for 6 or 7 minutes in the supermarket. I'm reacting more. In my case, I can say about myself, I can see this much pain, and I would not choose otherwise. I can see that. But I went through that long period of being suicidal to come out the other side to see the first a priori pattern that I discovered about being startled. So in that moment, it became irreversible. I am now on a path directly to this snap thing, even though it is almost 30 years. So it is a question about whoever is watching this, whenever they're watching it, about what the hell do I say to get you to make a more conscious choice about choosing a life where there's so much more love beyond the question, and there's so much more pain. And the pain is hurts more because it's clearer. It's not vague pain. Like I was dysthymic most of my life. That's vague pain. It's like being in a fog, not knowing where you're driving, right? This pain is clear. It's just simply the pain, in some sense, even though I'm not like this, it's small. It's the kind of pain that Buddhism describes of seeing the suffering in the world honestly, And I think that's something that we do. And I think that's something our whole community does more and more every year because we learn more a priori patterns. We have more ways of recognizing suffering. We also have more choices to become more loving behaviorally. Anyway, so, Eric, what is it like for you, for instance, to hear me acknowledge that, not in a way that I'm blaming anybody, but how much I have caused you to suffer by encouraging you to come on this path?
I mean, I first I have a really big question, but I'm gonna put that over here for a second and then answer your question. Um, I I'm like grateful and angry. I don't know if those feelings are compatible or not.
They sure are, Eric. Talk about it, please. Please.
Um,
Because
yeah,
you
I
are in
mean,
some way, Eric, speaking to any person who is watching this who doesn't actually know what this is about and thinks that this is about becoming a better therapist or, a better whatever, teacher or something. And that is true. And it is about the blamelessness that we aspire to, and it is about becoming more loving because of the results and so on. It's about permanent change, but it is also about more suffering as the price we pay to acquire those things. And you being angry, I can completely understand that because you couldn't have known no matter what I say.
yeah. I mean, I think that I've questioned myself a bunch of times about like, is it worth it to know anything, right? Is it,
Yes.
That's good.
you know, like,
Yeah.
and just seeing, seeing especially Sam and Maria because they've been with you the longest, and I've seen them suffer the hardest out of everybody.
Mhm.
And so I knew, like, in some ways that I wasn't going to get out of my shell, without, sort of having that period where there's nothing covering you, like,
Mhm. Mhm.
and have to kind of build up my defenses again. And, but yeah, plenty of times I was angry, like, when I think about, and this sort of leads to my other question, when I think about like therapists and some of the people I've worked with in the world, and I feel like the weight is different, at least for some of them. I mean, some may carry this weight,
Mhm.
but I don't think a lot of them carry this weight. And I'm like, why? Maybe I should just go do DBT because it's it's like there's no fucking weight, you know?
But then let me stop you. Even though you can see it as a theoretical option, Eric, how long could you do DBT where you then, in order to do it now, it's not a matter of learning it. It's a matter of overriding so many of the a priori patterns that you have learned to see. How could you do it? And I'm not saying you
No,
can't, right?
no, I agree. But I think my question that I had early on in this session was, like what is the pattern of becoming a therapist? Like, isn't for me, there's something in there. Like I feel like even the decision to walk through like pain with other people is in and of itself.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, because you could learn emergence and be a painter. I mean, you know,
That's
but we're
true.
all therapists.
That's true. Because the point of learning the patterns is definitely not limited to a profession.
Mhm.
And yeah, not. So I had neither one of you know about this. When I Marie and I met in the new bakery in Nyack a couple weeks ago, and we're sitting at a table, and she's sitting facing into the room, and I'm facing the sidewalk, so I can't see people who come in, is my point. And at some point, Maria says, and you wouldn't know this person, Eric. Oh, look, it's Jose, Silvio's father.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So Silvio is a younger brother of a person that Maria and Sam went to school with, and Silvio overdosed and died a little more than 2 years ago. And Jose is Silvio's father. she says, "Oh, it's Jose," and I turn around and I stand up, and for a minute he doesn't know who I am, and then he hugs me and kisses me on the cheek,
I
and
love Jose.
I think to myself, this is the father of a boy that I failed to, and there's not 1 ounce of blame or anything. And at some point, we are talking, and at some point, a woman comes over that knows Jose and says hello to him. And she says something, he says something to me about that I work as a therapist, but I'm not a therapist. I'm more like a teacher, a spiritual teacher. And coming from Jose, this is an extraordinarily awake man.
Oh God, that whole family. Yeah.
So my point is, you're right, Eric. Like what even the idea of becoming a therapist, what do we sign on for? You are so right. Um, because the pain of this person dying, the pain of the father not blaming me, the pain. It is a kind of love that's I don't have words for. And his effect on me is in some way paralleling, I think, my effect on you, Eric. His effect on me is to hurt me by exceeding my capacity to love myself, by how that's happening. And I know at times that I'm doing that with you, suffering nonetheless, which is the question this morning, you know? But you're raising a really important question, which is much more, I would say, okay, what does it mean to become a teacher, to become a therapist who's really a teacher, like a rabbi, like a teacher of life things? Because that's what we really are, you know? And it's not to say there are no therapists who do that intuitively. There are good therapists who do that intuitively, but we do it knowing. We have choices in a session, um, and sometimes the choices we make really elicit way more pain in the person. And we know in the a priori sense of the pattern of, well, we know what we're moving toward. We're moving toward trying to have the person have this realization that allows them not a bypass in per se, but a reorganization of blindness into something that they suffer. I won't say they suffer less, they suffer differently. They suffer in the name of being more loving, like what happened with Jose and what happened to me because of it. Like it reorganizes the suffering in a way that you no longer have any explanations for it. You just experience it. And love is just as painful as hate. They're both
Mhm.
extremely painful. So, have you come to any thoughts about you in that with that question, Eric?
Well, I mean, I think the question was always there, like I mean, those I think who even are drawn towards philosophy or
Mhm.
poetry or music or all of these sort of larger
Mhm.
like inner layer information, right? I think would be drawn towards that, regardless. But I mean, I was thinking it was interesting because we say that this is for everybody, which the theories are, and I could see like a philosopher or a teacher or a nurse but like if we look at the influence that the last person in our group to not be a therapist is currently becoming a therapist. So I, I do feel like we are uniquely fit in our capacity to sit with people and walk through their pain. And I also, for me, part of this was, and like Sam, I was very drawn to spiritual healing, and shamanism and in those traditions, you almost die,
Yes.
That's kind
I
of
don't
how
know.
they could tell
So I get what you're saying about physically,
the
but spiritually,
sickness.
Oh
but
yeah.
you die inside.
Oh
You
yeah.
it's Hannah says ego death, which is a Buddhist thing, but we die as persons. We die and we die more than once.
Oh yeah. When I
Each
was in
of
the
these
hospital, I mean, that was when mom would come with her friend, her shaman friend, they would just say, "This is your fucking dark. This is your dark night of the soul. This is your initiation." They weren't like, "This is a psychotic break." They were like, "This is an initiation of you." You know. So, and that was helpful to me, of course, that story.
What I'm adding, Sam, is each of the major discoveries during the time that you have known me, like discovering socialization as a minority majority thing was
Yeah,
huge,
that
right?
was amazing.
Discovering scene story, like it's beyond my ability to even describe it. So, but each of those has created a death of what I thought was true because it breaks apart, it fragments, and then it has to be reassembled where you include all the parts in a way that fit together. It's not like adding something extra. It's not like, okay, I put a new tool in my toolbox. It causes you to take every tool out of the toolbox and say, how do these things fit together? How do I use them collectively? And each of those times, like this past 5 months, has been very painful and very rewarding. And it's certainly not done about trying to figure this out. Like the idea of even thinking about what are the basic things on principles or things on which our community is rooted. What is this? You know, what makes it different? There's a lot of things many of the things, all the things have had sources, inspirations in other things, all the way back to ancient Greece and things like that. I have to have had countless things that have contributed to the scene story thing because the words existed, you know. But then when you realize the pattern that's underneath the words, a pattern that's not behavior, a pattern that is existed before there were any humans, it becomes, I don't know, bigger.
Mm, mm.
So, Sam, what would you say? Okay, you have somebody who is considering working toward coming in, Eden,
Yes, possibly.
not anything about what she has said or any revealing things, but about you. What do you think about that you
I
like?
don't think I could convince her that there's anything like, I mean, again, I think I could do 10 hours into about how much you're going to suffer and how awful it's going to be. I don't think it would have any effect currently on her. I literally don't. I think it would have no meaning. Because I mean, I'm just saying what she's seen and then what she feels like with the people. This is the thing is what does she feel like with me? What does she feel like with John when she spent time with him? And then what does she see? Yeah, I mean, there's no way. I don't know if there's any way I could convince her there's a downside right now.
Do you feel any? They go slowly. Do you feel any responsibility as we're having this conversation to in any way change anything about that? Is there, do you even think that there is any way to change any of that?
I've definitely been thinking, I'm not surprised you brought her up because I've been thinking about her in the background for, I don't know, 40 minutes or something. So I've been thinking about it and just doing little thought experiments like, what would I say? Or like, how would I really And I don't know. I mean, I every time I try to imagine breaking down in front of her about how hard this has been, I feel as if it will just further the layer 10 somehow. Like it will just get translated into layer 10. I don't know how not to get everything translated into layer 10 because now I'm just a vulnerable man. I mean, it just feels
That's true, Sam.
so how to yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I certainly have made the comments, the warnings, whatever it is. Um, but we'll see. I don't. Yeah, and I also don't know this person. So this person may quit. I mean, again, they may.
We don't know. But and that part isn't
That part is really not knowable to me at
and
this point.
it's not your responsibility,
No, I
right?
don't feel.
But yeah. But see, like
Sam makes a good point though,
how so?
you know, that I mean, even if you try to center this experience of pain, that it's going to create almost like a wind up, that they're almost going to be like, wait a minute, you mean I'm going to like collapse into the abyss of understanding? Like, please, like push me off the cliff.
Could see it as 10. They could really see it as 10.
Yeah,
I
because they're
mean,
not
said
seeing the
life is
actual.
suffering, and everyone joined him. I mean,
So maybe we can be a little bit more explicit at this point because I'm thinking to myself, we three understand this very much what we're saying. Somebody new watching this might think that we're being egotistical, uh,
oh,
about how, or elitist, or, that we're exaggerating the pain because human beings all feel pain, you know,
oh,
all feel pain,
oh, are you kidding?
So I don't think that the amount is the thing. I think that the clarity, like how clear is the suffering, not how much is the suffering. I don't think the amount is different for any human being. But I do think that it is more, I don't have the words. The more that you clearly understand suffering, I think it goes through you more quickly, but it's like it knocks you down. I don't know. I don't know.
I, I mean, I have something to add to that. I think so. Last night, um, Nicole came home and was she had this conversation about like a relative who was estranged from her, um and I was listening, and she had a lot of questions about the relationship and what I thought, and just in that moment, and again, it's not like I feel like I'm smarter than her at all. It's just more seems like, or it felt like I wanted to just introduce another language here and there. I feel this urge to be like, well, I could see all of these things about what you're saying, and then there's anxiety that like I can't. It's like, it's almost like if you're in another country and you know a few words, and they're talking to you in this other language, and so you're sitting there and you're like, and so, but it's in the opposite direction, right? Like, so I speak the other language and I know she knows a little bit. I mean, she's very much been invested in the things I've taught her, and agrees and believes in a lot of it, which is great. But she's on such a introductory sort of understanding of it, and I feel like I have to, sort of couch it or curb it or think about what I'm about to say or not impose or not, and I don't know. To me, that's I don't know that anybody would purposely sign on to make it more difficult to speak to their spouse.
Uh,
It's a good,
and
that's a great,
everybody close to them.
that's a good example.
You're right, Eric, and then you add in everybody close to them, and especially the people who are the most working on themselves. They're the ones who were the most vulnerable to being hit by, oh, look, the thing I thought was true isn't it. There's something else, or
My
the
mother works so hard on herself, and
what's
there,
that?
my mother works so hard on herself, as hard as any person I've ever seen. But yeah, there's been that we've had that crash. Not even just even sometimes it's just in me because I'm not gonna teach her. She's not my student, you know. But it's interesting because like the pattern for me is to be really precise is sometimes the people still feel closer and closer to me because my ability to understand them. But like but I feel further if we can't use the same language or they use a
Yes,
bunch of blame. And so like I would argue that people still feel closer to me as I learn this stuff, but I don't feel closer to them necessarily unless they know the language. And so it's really like because I'm guaranteed there's times where you're able to connect with Nicole more or like she feels more understood unless you're using the language that challenges the worldview or something. That's different. But like in those moments I can, yeah.
No, I mean, there's definitely the flip side is that I've not blamed her more often, or you know, or I've had like very like loving and deeper. I've had more love for her in the last year, I think, and there was the whole thing with the car the year before, and that I didn't go to retreat and sort of collapsed into our relationship, and so yeah, I mean, I feel like it has made us closer in a lot of ways, but I think it's we always talk about how like there's two sides of the coin,
yes,
and I think they're almost probably equal and opposite, right?
I agree, Eric.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a piece of what I'm trying to say this morning. In other words, what the two of you are raising is a piece of suffering, a piece that we gain is that our relationships become less complicated. They're by reducing the amount of blame that literally is in our behaviors, and it's not willpowered. It just goes away in some areas. It just goes away. We just, we see past it in a way that, okay, it's not true. Those things we used to think, they're not true, and that's such a gain.
Yeah.
But then the other side is exactly what the two of you are talking about, which is, and then what does it feel like to have to censor so many of the things that you know to be true or believe
Oh,
in?
and hearing some of the ideas are so painful. Like hearing somebody say, but they knew what they were doing. Like, and just a sentence like that just cuts through me like a fucking knife.
So
And
can you give an example of that, Sam? Because somebody watching might not know what you're saying.
I mean, I'm thinking about somebody that it was blaming their partner and saying, "Well, I told them about this thing about me, and they knew it. They knew it, and they still did it anyway." Like that is so painful for me. Oh, that is so. And a lot of times I'm like, okay, do I just let them have that reality or do I get in a fight with them because I'm going to challenge their entire worldview from a single sentence? And it's like, depending on how safe the person is, I'll opt out many times. Like, this particular person is not safe. So I'm like, you go ahead, you know? I let them have the blame, but it hurts, man. And may just be that the part of my brain that's understanding precisely that's so painful to hear an imprecision, but whatever it is, it hurts. The blame hurts. All of it hurts. I've been blamed like that. It's so painful. I don't believe in it. It doesn't feel true. It actually feels untrue to me. Like that whole thing.
That Sam is the thing that and I don't know how to get it across.
And
The
who am I
person
to
who
say that's
doesn't,
untrue? Who am I to say it's not true? I mean,
okay, who are you?
seriously,
Yeah, but this is one of those questions. See,
not true for
that's
me.
who are
I
you?
feel
Like,
fine saying it isn't true for me.
okay, yeah, this is Hannah chastises me for not speaking like that, and I refuse.
I mean,
Because
I can. I
because the
understand
a
all that.
priori patterns, nobody is going to tell me a th thing that's square isn't square. Nobody.
Sure.
And so me, it is not hubris, pride, whatever, to say, no, that's a square. It's not. But that piece is probably the biggest piece that challenges Hannah. She has said this to me, and this has caused more arguments than anything about the idea that I am certain that an aha just happened. This was one of our worst arguments in the entire time we've known each other, that I can look and see that somebody just had an aha. Now, the way that she understands it is still in the thing of she's set off by me saying, I know with certainty that the person had an aha. But I also realize I don't really have an easy way to teach people what I'm seeing. I thought about this last night in detail. So, what am I literally seeing? Because that's the essence, it's where the name comes from our community. The idea that you can have this emergence, you can have a realization that no logic can predict, um, and that emergence is from suffering. It's from a kind of unconscious suffering to a conscious suffering. Um, but okay, so wincing and flinching. Okay. And Hannah raised the thing about, well, can't somebody wince when they have something in their eye? And I hadn't thought about that, but I had to think about it.
Million things they could wins.
But I had to think about it. And I thought about it and I said, but it looks differently. Then it became more complicated because I thought about, well, do we all almost universally get injured by having shit in our eyes at a
Right. So you
point
can
where you
wince
get
it.
startled by it? And
Right.
then what does that mean? And does that make the idea of me seeing an emergence um, or an injury like wince or flinch, does that invalidate it? And no, it doesn't.
But also, the thing for me is that I get this as a single point. But the thing is, I could just keep bringing up the topic and they wince again and again and again. And then it eradicates the thing we're talking about. But
Okay, but okay, that's good,
are you
Sam.
saying theoretically something could fly in their eye every time I'm allergy testing them?
Yeah, okay. Okay. But now again, a person listening to this, it may be 10
I
years
know.
from now, right? And saying that wincing and flinching always is a priori pattern and it
Me and
always
you are so different
indicates
about this
what's
because
that?
I say different words in order to create less mess of. I'll say I would say the word often there instead of always, just for the sake of the not creating the thing that you're talking about between me and another person.
Yeah, yeah.
That, but I'm but
Subjective.
and I will remain that way. It's not that I don't feel the same as you, but I'm making a choice to just not. There's certain things I want to have a fucking thing about, and I don't. But there's a certain thing that there's an ease to it with that. But
But
it's
realize what somebody might be hearing as you're saying this. They're hearing you say, I don't really believe it's
no, no, I'm not saying that. I don't. No, I'm not saying that at all.
right. But think about what that means. In other words, here we are saying something philosophically enormous. We're saying, what can you know with certainty? And there is socialization that says, well, you should never know that you can know anything with certainty because what if? This is
Right.
a philosophical and socialized thing. We are socialized to say that it is grossly offensive. You are acting like you are a know-it-all. You're acting like you're God, like all these things which have been said to me
Right.
because I say that I can know with certainty that the candle is lit.
Sure.
And there is no way that that's not certain. It's lit.
Yeah.
So I am saying there are some small set of things that we can know with certainty.
Oh yeah, the thing I just said, like if it repeats over and over, like if every time I ask them to picture a banana, they wins, But I will use the word often if we're describing a single point. Like if they winced a single time, I have some caution about a single point.
I don't even say anything about a single time. I know better than that. I will go through the thing and do it
Oh
to
yeah,
be.
in the real world, nope. In the real world, I don't even say the winces half the time. I just say, you know, wait, stop. But I normally, almost everybody I teach winces, almost everybody, because they need to know the if why I'm stopping them every time they wince. There has to be some story about I'm
Yes.
going to stop you if you wince. Like,
Okay. But those two things, wincing, flinching, and having an emergence, are the foundation of everything that has happened in the past 30 years about this. The entire development has come from that because an emergence is learning.
and I know, and this is actually where what I've decided with Eden, ironically, is I am deciding to start with wounds with her because I'm like, if that's where it started, why not teach that first? Why not?
And that's interesting, Sam, because my thought about this morning is much is it and you may be right with that. That I don't know, but I've considered and then I considered the difference between urges and behavior, which I think belongs in the 8 sessions, but not this morning, because this morning what I'm really affected by in the series of what we're doing is what happened to you, Eric, 2 weeks ago, and everything that I have thought of since then. And the idea that I am happy that you said that you have the both sides, one side being you're angry at this.
Angry and grateful.
And really, Eric, consider what it means for a person who doesn't get angry. Do you realize there's something missing in that all of the learning of what we're doing?
Yeah, I don't get angry enough. I'm missing that a lot of the times.
I know, Sam. I have been thinking about it since we spoke about it, but the idea that Eric is angry about being woken up,
Yeah, I don't have that.
my words, not, whatever, but and he should be. This is what I am trying to get across, you know?
Yeah,
And of course, quite honestly, Eric, the amount of anger that you have is like a whiff of a fart in an elevator compared to Hannah's fucking Hurricane Helene fucking anger about these things with me. Oh my God. And in some way, she's, as I have said, equally uh, deserves credit for how she's pushing the shit out of me and how the two of us are enduring this fight, you know, because she's responsible in some way for me having the talking to you this morning about this. I have had the phrase that Sam said, I'm not her teacher, like about his mother, is something that um, has come up a number of times in my life when I simply speak about what I know about. This is not me trying to be a teacher. I know that thing very well, but simply saying something that is different information in the sense of a priori patterns, for instance, is so impactful that a person can get really mad because they're saying they can accuse me of becoming their teacher and they didn't sign on for that. Meanwhile, all I'm doing is talking about it's no different than sharing somebody else's life experience. I'm just sharing my life experience, but it's so the people cannot see the effect that it will have on them so much that immediately they get really mad because it's
yeah,
challenging something
yeah,
that they really, really believe, you know?
yeah. Well, I think probably in looking at it, it's it's sort of it's large, right? Like people talk about their life, they're just generally used to people just being like, I went to the store, they were out of eggs, they came home, and you're like, oh, okay. And then you tell them about like the pattern of eggs or something, and but it's your life experience because your life experience has been, one of discovery and insight and they're just like, yeah, that sign on thing. I mean, I've I've heard that about you. I've heard people say that about you. Um,
And it's
so
just me talking. It's not me wanting to, it's just me sharing my side of a discussion. And quite honestly, I think that the way that Sam described his caution about sharing these things, or you as well with Nicole, there's no time. That's not true. It rarely do I just um, share without considering the size of the thing I'm about to say. I don't mean like
I
the
think that we're saying the same thing. I mean, the caution is like I have to pick my spot because it's a worldview collapse. So it's like I'm picking a spot. If I'm in the middle of a session about something else, and it's like that's just picking the spot.
hmm,
ultimately, though, I think one, it's the a priori patterns that ground what we do that is the hardest thing for a person to see because the world sees patterns of behavior as the patterns we look at, not something as esoteric and abstract as a square with no color. Like that is, and even though 2 weeks ago the three of us did a good job of making that idea explicit, I think, probably the best ever. You know, the idea is still, it's as if you have an entire different dimension to your mind, like one that isn't about behavior whatsoever. It isn't even about urges. It's something that precedes all human beings. And it isn't limited as a philosophy or psychology. It's all of those things. The patterns affect all of those things. And it really says, in some sense, what is certainty? What can you be certain of in life? And when you then know that little piece, how much do you have to honestly admit, I can't know? An example many years ago, without knowing this, was there was the idea of God. And I remember when I came into AA, being still excessively influenced by my religious upbringing, and even though I would deny it and be angry about it, I still was worried that I'd go to hell. Okay, so that's a religious belief, right? And then I have a very vivid picture of a guy that had 10 years, I had 2 years, and we're having a conversation, and I'm talking about this, and he is saying that he doesn't believe in a man in the sky. That's just the way he said it. And then I remember listening in months later to Joseph Campbell talking about this. Um, and it is one of those kinds of before emergence things where I broke down. Like, you know, what do I then call that thing when I know there's something greater than me? Is it the word? Is it the particular religion? What is that? And to this day, now I'll say the universe as a place marker, but there's no universe that has legs and arms and eyes. It's not a person, you know? So that breakdown so now it's replaced by something that's just like it's the same a priori type of a pattern. It's replaced. There's something there. It's way larger than me. But the truth is, I feel certain that there's something there. I have no clue what it is. I can't describe it. It has no color. It's something beyond me and my ability to understand. And ultimately, what helped was the Islamic belief, or in Judaism, the idea that you can't know, that it's an arrogance to think you can know what God is. And
In
that
the Tao Te Ching, they say the Tao's older than God.
that's I can understand that completely. But the point I'm making is
No.
in that thing, this is one of those things you talked about, Eric, where this is way before emergence that this thing happened to me, but I understand that I had an aha. And ironically, letting go of the word God, even though I'll use it with people where it's fine. I'm not faking it, you know, but ultimately it made me more spiritual. It made me more rely on this a priori invisible, presence, something. So there is this idea of certainty. What can we be certain of is one of the questions that emergence tries to address. Then, separate from that question, which is the idea of, and who can we tell what we're certain of? And those two questions are fundamental questions that everybody has to suffer with if you learn emergence. What do you now feel certain of? What pattern? It's just a pattern. It can't be the time and place. It can't be the exact things about it. Can't be. We can't know that. But we can know the candle's lit. We can know the thing is square. And we can know that somebody just winced or flinched in the context of what we're talking about. Because if somebody just has that reliving of a wince because they got a dirt in their eye, that is not in a context. The idea of an emergence. And for me, the idea is if I bring it up a year later, the person's going to have that smile again. It doesn't go away, you know?
Yeah, Maria really convinced me about winces too. I can
How's
talk
that
about
going,
that
Eric?
real quick.
Yes.
Um, and I mean, I still feel like very new to looking at that, but
And if you still have doubt, Eric, you need to see there's not one fucking time where I will say to somebody, and you need to be certain or you're not doing it right. That's not it.
no. I mean, that's the thing I love about what we do are doing, and you and Sam specifically, and Maria, is that everything you do is like, okay, let's find evidence for what we're doing and not like because I say so, right? Like
Exactly.
it's like I was working on this thing yesterday, just quick side note about self-disclosure. And someone talked about how Freud was very much saying, never talk about yourself, except he talked about himself all the fucking time when he was doing therapies.
Yes.
It's like this is how you do it, except I do it differently. And you guys all do it a way that I feel I'm trying to do. So with Maria, I don't know how or why this happens, but a lot of a lot of our sessions, my eyes like go sort of cross, and we've talked about it a little bit, where I have this thing happen with my eyes, and we still don't really know a lot about it, but it there is a pattern there, and usually I think it resembles it has something to do with being seen first. That's our preliminary
Okay.
idea
Okay.
that when there's a lot of story stuff going on and I can't sort of and I'm like filled up,
Mhm.
I my eyes it's like things come up to my eyes and then my eyes fill up too. And I mean it resembles wincing. It resembles some sort of pattern. We haven't we've been working together I think almost a year now and
Mhm.
we still haven't gotten to the bottom of it.
I don't know
But
that there's a bottom, Eric,
yeah, but you know what I mean?
but I
Like
get it.
we're
Yes.
yeah, we have a lot more we have a lot more information about it. We have, we pay attention to it. And I do feel like it's not random. Like it doesn't just randomly happen that my eyes do this thing that she picks up on. And sometimes I'm not even picking up on it. And then she goes, "Where'd you go?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, my eyes are doing that thing again."
Mm.
And And then I like kind of looked to myself and I'm like, well, what was going on? I was like, I got lost. Usually there's like a getting lost and then the eye thing happens. And had Maria not pointed it out, like I don't know that I ever would have even thought about it.
Yeah. So the idea that we can know some things with certainty, for me, The amount of things is less than 1%. I talk about it that the only things we can know are fractal patterns, not linear patterns, that I cannot know any man-made linear idea. I can't know it. It's useful to have a conversation with somebody who that's their normal way of talking. But I know that I can't be certain of anything in a man-made pattern. There is no certainty for me about that. So that part's easy for me to let go of. The part of of a fractal pattern, for instance, wincing is a fractal pattern. It is a recognizable pattern that always repeats differently. There's no, even the same person doesn't wince exactly the same way in exactly the same sequence, whatever. Okay. But what can I know about it? I can't know shit. I can know that the person at some point in their past got startled. That's what I can know. What else can I know? Not a fucking thing. I can't know anything about it. And if I don't then take that as the starting point, well, then I'm going to try and eliminate the symptoms of what just happened. And no, I need to be qualitatively gathering as much information as I possibly can. However, and this is important, like something that you said at breakfast, Sam, when I can't remember what day we went, Saturday or whatever day we went to, right? Something that you said at the table was, and I don't remember exact words, but something to the effect of you can't yet land or feel confident about seeing story because you need to be gathering more information. So now that idea, I don't know that I'm correctly representing it, is not, I don't believe it's true.
The exact idea was related to scene story and how people describe them with words throws me off and it can steer me incorrectly. So
Yeah.
people will be in a scene but describe it as a story and it's like that is such a mind fuck for me.
Now I remember what you added in is the piece of what you're
Language.
seeing from the outside versus what the person's mind has.
Exactly. We talk about language, the Wiseman's
Okay.
game, all this
But,
stuff.
but it made me, and I don't know that you'll be capable of taking this in fully. I have thought about that every single day since that conversation.
Oh, me too. That makes me feel less alone.
I keep thinking
Done
about
that
it,
a
and
lot.
what I have ultimately came up to with is that I know the pattern of seeing story a priori. I want you to see what I'm saying. I
Sure.
know the pattern exists, and it's a real pattern, and I'm certain the pattern exists.
Mhm.
Stop. But I am not certain that I see it in a person in this moment, and there will never be the ending certainty, the kind of certainty that the case is closed with any pattern that's a priori that I bring into the world and try and apply. There will never be. It will always be that if there's more information and if anything contradicts it, it all must be integrated. And if something comes up and it completely says, well, this doesn't fit to what you believe the pattern to be, for instance, a person's character type, then I must integrate that stuff before I can say I know anything. In some
Right.
sense, it fragments the thing back to, okay, I know the basic patterns I can pick from, the four character types, for instance, but I don't know which it is with this person right now, even if I've thought they were a character type for 10 years. If I see something that cannot be explained and it's in an ordinary state of mind, it's not an injury, blah, 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 that must be integrated and it will change what I'm doing. So now, but the thing is that I can know the patterns exist and then sit with the person.
Mhm.
What I need to be adding in, of course, is asking the person questions, gathering the information, this or that. But can I have an intuitive sense that the person is scene or story first? And that's the piece that I was challenged by when you said that, Sam, because
Right.
I heard it as I can't actually. even have a starting hunch. It's not a hypothesis to me because
Uh,
it's mostly
I can understand how
intuitive.
you take that from the thing because there was a piece of me saying that I need to ask the question of the person before I can really know.
That's exactly. And
Yeah.
and this came out, Hannah and I had a lengthy conversation about intuition. What's
Yeah, but the whole
intuition?
thing
What's
is the
inference?
question I've asked. The piece I left out is the whole question I asked the person is based on the intuition. I mean, so I left that piece out, but yeah.
But yes, but this is something that really,
But
okay,
I've never been pushed to say the words about it. But like
okay.
everything for me, I start in seven, so everything starts with a inference or an intuition that has to be translated into a question.
And what Hannah said repeatedly is this is so good for Sam, who starts in seven, to have that recognition that you have to ask for the information.
Right. But of
But
course, in my head, Steve, I'm just like, this person's story first. I mean, that's what it's actually like in my head.
okay, but you're okay. This is really, here, this involves the certainty and it involves the humility of, we can never know the full thing, never, never, never. And we always have to be watching for information that might contradict what we're doing, but it doesn't mean we can't land. It doesn't mean that we're not gaining from having, okay, I think this person is seen first. And that's coming from intuition. And on a walk, Hannah said, well, what makes it intuition? What makes it not inference? And
Good good
what
question.
we came up with is that intuition isn't evidence-based. It
Hmm.
comes from a place that we can't really know.
Yeah, why am I like when we all do this, like I don't know why I'm asking this. Eric does this too. That's it. That's always like that's the kind of shit I say when it's intuitive. Like I'm not sure why I'm picturing this, but I keep seeing
100%.
that.
And
That's different than
somebody
your seven. They said one thing and I've inferred based on the tiny amount of data. That's not intuition. There's a piece that's making me infer.
and
That's
invisible change, which is what defines intuition,
right.
there's nothing that's landing. So when somebody then tries to say, no, but you noticed their face, or you noticed their body, or you heard them say a sentence, those pieces are inference.
Mm.
The inferences are rooted in, I can see this evidence, therefore I know what I'm going to come up with. That's what the basis of a hypothesis is. It's inference. Intuition, especially when all we're intuiting is an a priori pattern. That's what's critical. We're not inferring an outcome. We're not inferring we already know or we will know or whatever. It's a starting point, which we first have the a priori patterns and know they exist. We discover them, like scene versus story. Then, when we discover they exist, we then begin to have some intuitive sense of, I think this is a scene first person. Intuitive. There's no evidence that we can point our finger to, but we have this hunch, a feeling. It can be a thing in my body, right? Okay. Then that starting point, the intuitive starting point, where we pick from an a priori pattern and we think this person might be this, let me see. And then we go and we do all the qualitative research where we just gather broadly like what we're taking in. However, what good does that intuitive recognition do? It divides the evidence gathering process into dividing it into this feels correlated to what we're looking at for, and this does not, I can let it go.
Mm.
Because without that hunch, without that intuitive sense of what we're looking for, what guides the evidence gathering process? How do we would account for all manner of things that have no business being, they're not anything about a scene or a story.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
so this process is something this week or last week that I started with what you said, Sam, about that, and and then Hannah and I talked about it a lot, and then seeing that the a priori pattern, the first thing is we discover they exist like scene story. Then the next thing, but they exist. as a pattern outside of our world. This is separate. There's no color. There's no behavior. There's no urges. There's no person. The pattern just is a possible thing for human beings. And then the next thing is we sit with a human being and we somehow that our intuition says, I wonder if this person is seen first. And you have some intuitive sense that you cannot support. There is no way to explain it because it's not evidence-based. It is a sense where we're taking the a priori pattern outside of the world, and now Hannah said it's like having a square that's purple, right? That's what she's saying. Okay, that's it though. What is it doing? What is the function? Why do we see this? None of that exists. But then going forward in the evidence gathering process, we're dividing the evidence into what we feel applies to this question and what doesn't. Because there's an awful lot of things where it's scene or story where they're the same.
Mhm.
It doesn't lean one way or the other.
Mhm.
That's as
Yeah.
far as I have gotten about this thing. Like this is the next
Pretty
installment
far.
in my mind from what we did last time.
It's pretty far.
You know, that what is it that we're doing? If it's not a hypothesis, because a hypothesis is an assumed answer, an assumed outcome, an assumed done. We know enough about it. And we don't have that because all it does is ask more and more questions. But we can have a hunch. I think this person's you first. We can have
But
a
so it's
hunch.
an assumed question instead of an assumed answer.
And the question simply becomes, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on right now. I'm very curious about this in this person.
But yeah, but it could get discarded almost instantly.
Yeah,
Well, the other thing I thought of too, is we're going back to last time we met, is that, you know, the exercise with the square, like when you're imagining the pattern of the square, it can be perfect. Like it could be a perfect square, but once you in
that's right.
real life,
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
you can't draw a perfect square. It's impossible.
Well, the other side, which has bothered me since I did that with you, is I don't know a way to do this where I can teach the square, but the pattern is fractal because a square is not fractal, not in the real sense of it. A square is linear. It uses straight lines. So there's a translation thing that has to happen, like the transition from the outside of our world into our world by its very nature means that there are no straight lines. But the straight lines actually exist outside of our world. That's what the ancient Greeks talked about, Parmenides, that it exists outside of our world, those perfect lines. But in the process of bringing it into this world, it that doesn't exist like that anymore.
The first thing I saw was that shell with the Fibonacci laid over it.
Absolutely. But that shell is the conch shell or whatever it is, the Nautilus shell, I think, is
Mhm.
a fractal. That's one of the most famous fractals there is. But that word, even that word, I'm writing about just the introduction to the new book and man-made versus natural patterns. I'm trying to figure out a way to say it. I don't want to like make somebody go, this is a book about love. What the fuck do I care about fractals? Right? Which I understand. And
Well,
ironically,
I mean,
yeah.
it is a fractal love.
And Eric, the idea that you know that is just something that we all take for granted. And yet in this moment, I'm amazed about how easily you know that because that's true. That's true. It's not a linear thing. We're chasing soulmates, linear. Love forever, linear. No more fights, linear. Get the hell out of here. No, what the real thing I just was surprised by, Sam, is when you were saying mostly or only or almost often. Okay. That you have those qualifying, this qualifies me to say I'm not playing God, right? Because I'm saying imperfect words, right?
That's
Okay.
right.
More than anything I've written in the past 30 years, this book has a lot of that.
Th those book you got you doing those things?
The introduction says again and again, what the fuck do I know? Why would how could I possibly write a book on love with all the books that are out there and a lot of them have good stuff in it? What could I possibly add? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm saying my main qualification is that I'm such a fuck up. That's what I'm saying, which I think is appropriate in a book on relationships
Oh
because
yeah,
that's
that's
true. But it's ironic that here I am saying this, about writing a book, but it isn't about the patterns. It's about my behavior. It's about my, whatever, my life, the way I've lived it,
Mhm.
you know. As of recent, I have really had a challenging thought of, like, yet again, because this has come many times, can I possibly develop a me state? And I have been laughing because I have been saying to Hannah and Clancy, you two are teaching me. I am like learning this pattern from the two of you. But it still has a thing in there where I just can't let it go and be entitled to it,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh my God. Steve, it was funny. I wrote you that email the other day, and I was like thinking a lot about emergence this week, and I was just thinking about like how as time goes on we keep adding to things,
Yeah,
and my being having a me state has generated. I mean, I could probably just sit for a month or two in my basement and just think about how all of the things you've talked about and just look at them through this perspective of me having a me state as well.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's what each of these a priori patterns has. It has the potential, even though I can see it as, in some sense, intellectually developmental. In other words, the patterns all exist and always have. But if I look at the developmental sequence of learning this, personality, then socialization, then worldview, then scene story, and that I can't know anything about the outer three layers if I don't know whether I have a me state. Just what you just said. Because every story that you tell is different if you have a me state, potentially, you know? But develop,
Yeah.
but theoretically developmental means that I am learning it developmentally, but the stuff there's no development. It always existed. It's existed before people.
Yeah. And part the other reason why it came up too is and Sam knows because I talked about calling Sarah this week in our group is part of the reason I called Sarah, which she still doesn't know because she hasn't asked me why I called yet.
Of course not.
Uh, Um, is I felt like I flipped in therapy
Oh,
for the first time. I mean, I've always felt very comfortable and natural, but so many times I was sitting there like worried about them urgently.
ah, So here's the word urgent says you flipped because there's possible being a three that you can go into the you part. But the word urgent tells you you're upside down. So this is one of those things where this is a part of the pattern that we can speak to with certainty. Now, can I be certain you have the right amount of urgency? It's a tipping point. It changes day to day. That's not something I'm concerned with. It's not linear. But so now this is the first time that you stayed right side up in a session. Is that what you're saying, Eric?
I mean, it's probably happened. There's no way I've never,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
But okay, let me say it differently. So this is the first time that you've been right side up that it's been notable.
Yes, and more often and more consistent and recognize even seeing like that I may be one or the other in a session at any
Yes.
time.
Yes. Yeah. And
That's
I
so
don't,
wild, man. I just never thought about that. Like there is no thing for me. It's either I'm connected or in a U state. So the idea that you have three things, you could be connected in a me state or in a U state. I just never, this is not a thing I've ever had to think about. I just actually felt grateful for being a two. There's no conflict. I mean, I've noticed, oh, giving even more or whatever,
yeah,
but
you can be upside down in a U state, like
it's the
urgently
same
giving
urgency.
versus normally giving. Yeah.
It's just interesting. Like that's a whole additional crisis that I don't have. It's just like,
But Sam, but we have the workaround. We have the bypass for twos, the two bypass, which is I need to do this for the other person.
right.
I need to take up space for the other person. But it's not the same as what Eric is saying.
No, he's saying he's got to. I mean, listen. Yeah, I mean, I can't.
It's this.
I don't have any reference. It's all theoretical for me what he's talking
Exactly.
about.
Me too. Imagine
But
that, Eric.
it's
It's
really interesting because I
completely
never would have thought about it. I never would have thought about it.
so you just had an emergence.
I did. It's just about the yeah, just that I don't have it. Yeah,
And very nicely, because we're coming to the end of our time,
yeah.
that it is an evidence. If somebody can go back and watch this happen, they can watch that you had this, Sam. They can see, well, what Eric is saying, what I was saying back and forth, Eric and I, and then you saying, I never thought about this. And now you have the thought. So, in what way is that important? Well, in a way
Oh,
that
I mean, I'm going to
no human
supervise.
being,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm going to supervise three therapists. I mean, this is a whole thing I should think about, even if it's not personal.
yeah. And it also then it brings up the idea of your new student. You know, there's more need to um, tailor your teaching to her character type. We don't know it. Yeah. Yep. Huh. So,
I'm very pleased. I just got an email from the guy that I use in Asheville. His name's Dr. Durr. He's the autism evaluator.
yes.
Sent six people that are autistic, and he's gotten all six right. And it's always anxiety every time that he's not going to agree with me. But so far, he's agreed every time.
So, what is
So,
so just in this thing, what does that tell you about your abilities, Sam?
oh, this is going to sound terrible, but I'm more concerned about his abilities, not mine.
Okay. No, but you missed. I did it. I deliberately
Well,
made the.
my ability is good even in the worldly sense, I
No, no,
guess.
no.
So,
Okay. Let me watch what happens.
okay.
I was asking and deliberately left out part. What does that mean about your ability to tolerate somebody else not knowing?
Oh, it's low about this. About autism, about some people I care about. Oh, it's
Yes,
really,
yes, 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 yes. Me
yeah, but
too.
it's interesting. But I'll be curious. I'll really be curious. So I've worked with this guy for years. I really trust him. He's a sweet man. He's body first too. He's majority social. He's probably autistic and doesn't know, ironically. But or at least he's not said he's autistic yet. But he's good and he's a good. He reached out recently saying, "Do you know anyone else that works with autism?" Because he's always trying to refer me people, but I don't take people. So I told him about Hannah, and I think me and Hannah are gonna go meet. He invited us to the office to see where he does the testing. So, because I said Hannah works with people that are autism level one and Aspies. And so, yeah, so he's a good connect to have. I'm just still waiting for the first time he's going to say, I don't think this person is autistic, and I'm going to go nuts. Um,
Well,
but
okay, you know what's going to happen? I mean, we have 2 minutes now. Let's just, because this is people would be watching, and this is us not being know-it-alls, and so you're worried about that happening. I could understand that completely because we have criteria where there are a priori patterns that determine autism.
right. And I think he does too, but I've not talked to him about it.
I
Yeah.
think his are intuitive. And I think the thing that we have that he doesn't have is that we know those a priori patterns exist outside this world.
Correct.
But
Correct.
functionally, I don't think it matters, Sam.
Oh, 3 out of 6, he said he knew instantly. 3 out of the 6 people, he said he knew it in the first
So,
minute.
okay, so
They're
instantly
majority, and those
means
people were majority social, so it wasn't like they're like minority.
okay. So now, Sam, what emergence, the community, the idea of it, our philosophy would say is if this guy says somebody's not autistic and you think they are, you have now signed on for a master class in autism. Because knowing what he's saying and knowing what you're saying and reconciling that, that is so important. We cannot omit evidence,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I wouldn't
you
admit.
know? So
Listen, he.
I understand I understand the anxiety about it,
Yeah.
and I would prefer I don't have to do
I
that.
mean, the thing that I've been most curious about is like, what would happen if Hannah or Clancy went to him? Somebody that's the piece that I've wondered about, which I wouldn't send them, but I would just be curious what would happen. And
Now,
then somebody like me, I believe if I went, I would get the diagnosis because of the socialization I have. I think I'd get the They'd ask about my history and my how I feel in social situations, and I would score off the charts on everything.
well, you
And I
got
have
your
special
right
interests
to
that I
the end.
obsess about. I mean, I have all the pieces in a worldly sense,
Yes, I got it.
but I'm not fussy with language. As I'm not as fussy with language. So from our patterns, I wouldn't make in the world. I'm pretty sure I would definitely get autism level 1.
Yeah, you're a friend of autistics.
I mean, I have features, there's no doubt.
Yes, Sam, but that's way more accurate than the world would be able to say.
No, they don't have that. Well, they have what do they call it? They
Oh,
have a
don't tell me
word
the
for
word.
features.
Don't even tell me
Oh, no, it's
No,
subclinical feature. It's subclinical features. They actually use the word features. It's subclinical.
well,
subclinical. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not clinical.
Okay.
I seem pretty clinical to me.
We're all clinical.
All
Believe.
right.
Anyway, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you.